Hello everybody and welcome to Kindwyn's Coastal Reads, and today I'm going to be reading to you another fairy tale from the Hans Christian Andersen, The Complete Fairy Tales. And the story I'm reading today is called Charming. Okay, Charming. Alfred the Sculptor, you know him? We all know him. He won the gold medal, went to Italy, and then came home again. He was young in those days, and indeed he is young yet, though he is 10 years older than he was then. After his return, he visited one of the little provincial towns on the island of Zealand. The whole town knew who the stranger was, and one of the richest persons gave a party in honor of him. And all who were there were of any consequence or possessed any property were invited. It was quite an event, and all of the town knew of it, without it being announced by beat of drum. Apprentice boys and children of poor people, and even some of the poor people themselves, stood in front of the house and looked at the lighted curtain, and the watchman could fancy that he was giving a party. So many people were in the streets. There was quite an air of festivity about, and the house was festivity also. For Mr. Alfred, the sculptor, was there. He talked and told anecdotes, and all listened to him with pleasure and a certain kind of awe. But none felt such respect for him as did the elderly widow of an official. She seemed, so far as Mr. Alfred was concerned, like a fresh piece of blotting paper that absorbed all that was spoken and asked for more. She was very receptive and incredibly ignorant, a kind of female Caspar Hauser. "I should like to see Rome," she said. "It must be a lovely city, with all the strangers who are continually arriving there. Now do give us a description of Rome. How does the city look when you come in by the gate?" "I cannot very well describe it," replied the sculptor. "A great open place, and in the midst of it an obelisk, which is 4,000 years old." "An organist!" exclaimed the lady, who had never met with the word obelisk. A few of the guests could hardly keep from laughing, nor could the sculptor quite keep his countenance. But the smile that rose to his lips faded away, for he saw close by the inquisitive dame a pair of dark blue eyes. They belonged to the daughter of the speaker, and any one who had such a daughter cannot be silly. The mother was like a fountain of questions, and the daughter, who listened but never spoke, might pass for the beautiful naiad of this fountain. How charming she was! She was a study for the sculptor to contemplate, but not to converse with, and indeed she did not speak, or only very seldom. "Has the Pope a large family?" asked the lady. And the young man answered, as if the question could have been better put. "No, he does not come of a great family." "That's not what I mean," the widow persisted. "I mean, has he a wife and children?" "The Pope is not allowed to marry," said the gentleman. "I don't like that," was the lady's comment. "I don't like that," was the lady. She certainly might have put more sensible questions, but if she had not spoken in just the manner she used, would her daughter have leaned so gracefully upon her shoulder, looking straight out with an almost mournful smile upon her face? Then Mr. Alfred spoke again, and told of the glory of color in Italy, of the purple hills, the blue Mediterranean, the azure sky of the south, whose brightness and glory was only to be surpassed in the north by a maiden's deep blue eyes. And this, he said, with a peculiar application, but she who should have understood his meaning looked as if she were quite unconscious of it, and that again was charming. "Italy," sighed a few of the guests. "Oh, to travel," sighed others. "Charming, charming!" "Yes, if I win $50,000 in the lottery," said the head tax collector's lady, "then we will travel. I and my daughter, and you, Mr. Alfred. You must be our guide. We'll all three travel together, and one or two good friends more." And she nodded in such a friendly way at the company that each one might imagine he or she was the person who was to be taken to Italy. "Yes, we will go to Italy, but not to those parts where there are robbers. We'll keep to Rome, and to the great high roads, where one is safe." And the daughter sighed very quietly, and how much may lie in one little sigh, or be placed in it? The young man placed a great deal in it. The two blue eyes lit up that evening in honor of him must conceal treasures, treasures of the heart and mind, richer than all the glories of Rome. And when he left the party that night, he had lost his heart, lost it completely to the young lady. The house of the widow was now the one which Mr. Alfred the sculptor frequented, and it was understood that his visits were not intended for that lady, though he and she were the people who kept up the conversation. He came for the daughter's sake. They called her Calla. Her name was really Karen Molina, and these two names had been contracted into the one named Calla. She was beautiful, but a few said she was rather dull and slept late of a morning. She has always been accustomed to that, her mother said. She's a beauty, and they always are easily tired. She sleeps rather late, but that makes her eyes so clear. What a power lay in those bright eyes. Still waters run deep. The young man felt the truth of this proverb, and his heart had sunk into the depths. He spoke and told his adventures, and the mamma's was as simple and eager in her questioning as on the first evening of their meeting. It was a pleasure to hear Alfred describe anything. He spoke of Naples, of excursions to Mount Vesuvius, and showed colored prints of several of the eruptions, and the widow had never heard of them before or taken time to consider the question. "Good heavens!" she exclaimed. "So that is a burning mountain, but it is not dangerous to the people round about?" "Whole cities have been destroyed," he answered. "For instance, Pompeii and Herculaneum." "But the poor people! And you saw all that with your own eyes?" "No, I did not see any of the eruptions represented in these pictures, but I will show you a picture of my own of an eruption I saw." He laid a pencil sketch upon the table, and Mamma, who had been absorbed in the contemplation of the highly colored prints, threw a glance at the pale drawing and cried in astonishment, "Did you see it throw up white fire?" For a moment, Alfred's respect for Calla's mamma suffered a sudden diminution, but, dazzled by the light that illuminated Calla, he soon found it quite natural that the old lady should have no eye for color. After all, it was of no consequence, for Calla's mamma had the best of all things, namely Calla herself. And Alfred and Calla were betrothed, which was natural enough, and the betrothal was announced in the little newspaper of the town. Mamma purchased 30 copies of the paper that she might cut out the paragraph and send it to their friends and acquaintances, and the betrothed pair were happy, and the mother-in-law elect was happy too, for it seemed like connecting herself with Thorwaldsen. "For you are a continuation of Thorwaldsen," she said to Alfred. And it seemed to Alfred that Mamma had in this instance said a clever thing. Calla said nothing, but her eyes shone, her lips smiled, her every movement was graceful. Yes, she was beautiful. That cannot be too often repeated. Alfred undertook to make a bust of Calla and of his mother-in-law. They sat to him accordingly, and saw how he molded and smoothed the soft clay with his fingers. "I suppose it's only on our account," said Mamma-in-law, "that you undertake this commonplace work, and don't leave your servant to do all that sticking together." "It is necessary that I should mold the clay myself," he replied. "Ah, yes, you are so very polite," retorted Mamma, and Calla silently pressed his hand, still soiled by the clay. And he unfolded to both of them the loveliness of nature and creation, how the living stood above the dead, the plant above the mineral, the animal above the plant, and man above the animal. How mind and beauty became manifest in outward form, and how the sculptor gave that beauty its manifestation in his works. Calla stood silent and nodded approbation of the expressed thought, while Mamma-in-law made the following confession. "It's difficult to follow all that, but I manage to hobble after you with my thoughts, though they whirl round and round, but I contrive to hold them fast." And Calla's beauty held Alfred fast, filled his whole soul, and seized and mastered him. Beauty gleamed forth from Calla's every feature, from her look, from the corners of her mouth, and in every movement of her fingers. Alfred the sculptor saw this. He spoke only of her, thought only of her, and the two became one, and thus it may be said that she spoke much, for he spoke very much. Such was the betrothal, and now came the wedding, with bridesmaids and wedding presents, and all duly mentioned in the wedding speech. Mamma-in-law had set up Thorwaldsen's bust at the end of the table, attired in a dressing gown, for he was to be a guest. Such was her whim. Songs were sung, and cheers were given, for it was a gay wedding, and they were a handsome pair. Pygmalion received his Galatea, so one of the songs said. "Oh, that's your mythology," said Mamma-in-law. Next day the youthful pair started for Copenhagen, where they were to live. Mamma-in-law accompanied them, to take care of the commonplace, as she said, meaning the domestic economy. Kalle was like a doll in a doll's house. All was so bright, so new, and so fine. There they sat, all three, and as for Alfred, to use a proverb that still describes his position, we may say that he sat like the friar in the goose-yard. The magic of form had enchanted him. He had looked at the case, and cared not to inquire what the case contained, and that omission brings unhappiness, much unhappiness into married life. For the case may be broken, and the gifts may come off, and then the purchaser may repent his bargain. In a large party it is very disagreeable to observe that one's buttons are giving way, and that there are no buckles to fall back upon. But it is worse still in a great company to become aware that the wife and mother-in-law are talking nonsense, and that one cannot depend upon oneself for a happy piece of wit to carry off the stupidity of the thing. The young married pair often sat hand in hand, he speaking and she letting fall a word here and there, the same melody, the same 2 or 3 tones of the bell. It was a mental relief when Sophie, one of her friends, came to pay a visit. Sophie was not pretty. She was certainly free from bodily deformity, though Kalle always asserted she was a little crooked, but no eye save a friend's would have remarked it. She was a very sensible girl, and it never occurred to her that she might become at all dangerous here. Her appearance was like a pleasant breath of air in the doll's house, and air was certainly required there, as they all acknowledged. They felt they wanted airing, and consequently they came out into the air, and Mamma-in-law and the young couple traveled to Italy. "Thank heaven that we are in our own 4 walls again," was the exclamation of mother and daughter when they came home a year after. "There's no pleasure in traveling," said Mamma-in-law. "To tell the truth, it's very wearisome. I beg pardon for saying so. I found the time hang heavily, although I had my children with me, and it's expensive work traveling. Very expensive. And all those galleries one has to see, and the quantity of things you are obliged to run after. You must do it for the decency's sake, for you're sure to be asked when you come back, and then you're sure to be told that you've omitted to see what was best worth seeing. I got tired at last of those endless Madonnas. One seemed to be turning a Madonna oneself." "And what a bad living you get," said Kalle. "Yes," replied Mamma. "No such thing as an honest meat soup. It's miserable trash, their cookery." And the traveling fatigued Kalle. She was always fatigued. That was the worst of it. Sophie was taken into the house, and she did good there. Mamma-in-law acknowledged that Sophie understood both housewifery and art, though a knowledge of the latter could not be expected from a person of her limited means. And she was, moreover, an honest, faithful girl. She showed that thoroughly while Kalle lay ill, fading away. Where the case is everything, the case should be strong, or else all is over, and all was over with the case. Kalle died. "She was beautiful," said Mamma. "She was quite different from the antiques, for they are so damaged. Kalle was whole, and the beauty should be whole." Alfred wept, and Mamma wept, and both of them were mourning. The black dress suited Mamma very well, and she wore mourning the longest. Moreover, she had soon to experience another grief in seeing Alfred marry again, marry Sophie, who had no appearance at all. "He's gone to the very extreme," cried Mamma-in-law. "He has gone from the most beautiful to the ugliest, and has forgotten his first wife. Men have no constancy. My husband was a different stamp, and he died before me." Pygmalion received his Galatea, and Alfred, yes, that is what they said in the wedding song. "I had once really fallen in love with a beautiful statue, which awoke to life in my arms, but the kindred soul which heaven sends down to us The angel who can feel and sympathize with and elevate us, I have not found in one till now. You came, Sophie, not in the glory of outward beauty, though you are fair, fairer than is needful. The chief thing remains the chief. You came to teach the sculptor that his work is but clay and dust, only an outward form and a fabric that passes away, and that we must seek the essence, the eternal spirit. Poor Calla, ours was just but wayfarer's life. Yonder where we shall know each other by sympathy, we shall be half strangers. That was not lovingly spoken, and Sophie not spoken like a true Christian. Yonder where there is no giving in marriage, but there, as you say, souls attract each other by sympathy. There, where everything beautiful develops itself and is elevated, her soul may acquire such completeness that it may sound more harmoniously than mine, and you will then once more utter the first rapturous exclamation of your lives, beautiful, most beautiful. And that is the story of Charming from the Hans Christian Andersen Complete Fairy Tales, and hope you enjoyed that story. And if you like this video, you can click the like and subscribe button, and I will try to be back tomorrow with another fairy tale for you all. Thank you for watching. Have a good night. Bye.